Around a year and a half ago, as I wrote this script, a company called Nexon made a game called The First Descendant along with Omega Team, and a friend of mine heavily recommended it shortly after the beta. I never got around to playing the beta because I heard it was like Warframe, and while I'd played Warframe from time to time, I never really got big into it. But my friend said this game had some staying power. It had something about it that could really just suck you in. And that's true. There's something about this game, and I'm not quite sure what it is. But something about this game sucked me in. Well, a few somethings. Before I get into my breakdown of the lore and the theories, I want to say there are some theories in here, and if for some reason you don't see evidence from in game that adds to one of my points, it's because I either got the evidence from a translated article or it's a theory. I want to give also a huge shout out to Financial Panda and Whispering Hawk, as Financial Panda had a Reddit post linking to the director's interviews pre-release that had to be translated, and Hawk had a complete playthrough so I could listen to all the dialogue again. My theories would not have been very good if it weren't for those, and so I want to give them a shout out for helping me with this, and I'll link both those in the description. I do also want to say that there are some theories in here. I tried to use records and actual in-game evidence to support my theories where I could, but that also doesn't mean I didn't miss anything. And if I did miss something, if you could please let me know, I'll correct it. I'd be more than glad to revise this at a later date, maybe make a more comprehensive lore guide. So with all that out of the way, let me get started with the Age of Architects. Way before the events of the game ever took place, all we had was a planet called Ingress. Ingress was ruled by a civilization called the Architects, and they were responsible for the creation and destruction of civilizations to the point where everything was just a big game to them because they're immortal beings. One day on their travels, the Architects came across three things called Ironheart. The Architects immediately gather these items and begin digging into the Ironhearts, and they discover something called Arche. They research the Arche, and they discover that this can help their created civilizations soar past their original limits. So naturally, as any scientific community would do, they begin experimenting on humans, causing a majority of them to die. But some of them ended up surviving these experiments, and those who survive now possess special abilities. These were the foundations for the descendants to come in the future. As the ancestors tested some of the other Ironhearts, they discovered the Ironhearts could bend space and time to create a bridge between two different worlds. The Architects used this to discover a place called Kliphoth, and they immediately launched an invasion onto the world, thinking their soldiers were the strongest. They also discovered something called the Void, and the Void acts as a barrier between worlds, and it too has effects on Arche. As they invade Kliphoth on the other side of the dimensional barrier, they meet an alien species called the Vulgus, who were created by someone just as powerful as the Architect. But instead of destroying civilizations for fun, this person, named the Dominator, sought to create the strongest species in the universe, and that they did in the Vulgus. Despite having immense power, the Architects and their soldiers would end up getting defeated in battle, and several Architects go missing. A few ships, meanwhile, return home to Ingress to inform the rest of the ancestors of the danger on the other side of the breach. With the might of Ingress, they were still not strong enough to defeat Kliphoth. The Dominator, however, was fascinated by the power of the ancestors, and they realized that they could take that power and become stronger. So the Vulgus immediately start preparations for an invasion into Ingress. This leads to what I believe are the oldest records in the game chronologically, where the ancestors begin trying to figure out a way to defend Ingress from the oncoming imminent invasion. The key element of this project is the transformation of Arche-based organisms. We see it as progress or improvement. It's fundamentally different from evolution.
It's the possibility of shedding the shell of organic matter and becoming more advanced. Yes, you could say it's the possibility of transcending one's existence. We're finally opening up the possibility of researching the ultimate being, the Colossus. The frail skin will become indestructible armor, and the weak body will become a vessel of immense power. We will not succumb to external threats. The glorious freedom that will spring from this plan will start from this small piece of technology. The plan I'm about to outline is one that will brighten our future. Record by researcher. Starting. Measurements detect significant changes in molecular properties. Amount of inorganic matter and metal molecules relative to organic matter content increased. Inherits the properties of inorganic compounds while retaining neural processing capabilities. Exploring synaptic transmission slowdown. Results not detected. Maintain RK activation levels. 3% of final target value reached. Confirmed additional valid molecular structures. Alternative delta binding estimates available. Likelihood of reaching 5% of target value in 72 hours. Results likely. Review transitioning to the next phase. Results proceed. Identify likelihood of meeting schedule. Results chance of likelihood at 43.114%. Variant log. Day 6. The subject has been transforming for about 17 hours. The problem is that its range has exceeded expectations. We need to confirm if it's an issue with the aqueous solution ratio. But the bigger problem is that the self is unstable. If we don't solve this, we will not be able to create beings as powerful as we would like. In the end, it's the change in the desired direction that matters, not the unpredictable variations. In this situation, it is impossible to take more proactive steps. We'll never get the level of results we want if we don't ensure our safety first. Many of our colleagues are placing their hopes on the researchers of the Bastion of Eternity. We must not let them down. I'm not saying they were right. I just wonder if there could have been a better way to solve it. I can't stop thinking about what could have been. Recent research has made great strides, but progress is not completion. An imperfect plan is an incomplete response. Ultimately, I realized this research is too advanced for our current knowledge and technology to complete. It is a tower built on blood that can never be advanced without countless sacrifices. I wonder if we can make enough progress before the real work begins. Or maybe they're right. But it's too late. There is no going back, and we have no choice but to step forward into an uncertain future. All I can do is provide us with the momentum to move forward. Notifying researchers. A research area exists on the upper level. The archives is a restricted area. Do not enter the lower level. Experimental supplies require careful management to ensure that they do not wake during cryogenic storage. Please note that the area may be without power due to planned energy maintenance. Please confirm with the principal investigators. Please also be aware of the loading limits of the waste disposal facility. Waste has increased by 30% over the previously estimated amount. Researchers in each area should be careful when using these facilities. There have been recent incidents of waste-related damage at containment facilities in several areas, and repairs will take both time and resources. Please be aware of these regulations while on the ship. Notifying all crew aboard Bastion of Eternity. Full lockdown of facilities due to activation of emergency protocols. Activating emergency protocols. Imitating lockdown process. 1%. 2%. Time remaining 3,600 seconds until completion. Attempting self-repair. Results: failure. Attempting to reignite main drive. Results: failure. Core functionality warning. A fatal kernel panic has occurred. All crew is advised to disembark. Chance of erosion from void energy, 71.451%. Searching for possible courses of action to escape the void abyss. Recommendation: none. Warning: chance of lethal high energy object approach. Results: high. Recommendation: quarantine all compartments and destroy research data.
So, as you will have heard in the records above, we'll start with the Arche-based organism design plan. The ancestors, now knowing they need to get stronger quickly, began organizing a plan called the Project Bastion of Eternity. Now, the author of this record speaks of how they plan to transform Arche-based organisms into improvements, removing the need for organic matter and becoming way more advanced as a civilization. They view it as transcending one's existence. So they seek to reach the ultimate being, something they call a colossus. This would make the frail skin of the humans and ancestors turn into vessels of immense power. And this would be what they think turns the tide of the war and saves them from external threats. Now, at first, the results look promising. The amount of inorganic matter in the subject system related to the organic matter has increased, and no mental slowdown is detected. The power levels are 3% of the target, and things are starting to look bright, thinking they will reach 5% within the next 72 hours. Then they begin transitioning the variant to the next phase, with an unlikely but still achievable possibility of meeting their schedule. But after a few days have passed, while the range of abilities has exceeded expectations, and the creatures are becoming more powerful, they're also becoming unstable and more prone to death. That means that the Colossus can not become as powerful as they really wanted, and still have a reasonable chance of surviving. Meanwhile, the Bastion of Humanity plan has shifted, and they're now going to be sending a ship into the void to research something else in order to aid the defense of Ingress. At which point, a disheartened ancestor begins writing a journal talking about their failure to create colossi as strong as their intent was. They acknowledge the uncertainty surrounding the Bastion of Eternity, but they also have no choice but to go through with it. They begin loading up their mid-transformed colossus, and they put them in the ship. This ship contains a research area on the upper floor and the archives on the lower level. They then begin cryogenically storing their experiments to prevent them from waking up. And they're also having to perform maintenance already on their energy system. The waste on the ship is also beginning to pile up, and this results in damage to several areas of the ship. The final piece of lore tells us that the ship is in the void abyss. The ship's also going into lockdown due to the activation of emergency protocol. The damage has just become too much for it to handle, and it's falling apart. The ship tries to repair itself, but it can't. It fails at reigniting the main drive, and a fatal kernel panic has occurred, and the entire crew is advised to disembark. There's a 71.5% chance of erosion for void energy, and finally, the chance of a lethal high-energy object approaching them is high. Now, you may be asking, what is this high-energy object? I believe it to be a Vulgus ship. This ship would take some of the ancestors who were on the Bastion, and they would surrender, offering to join the Dominator and help them understand Arche and Void energy. We can assume the survivors of the invasion returned back with the Ironheart, which would mean the Vulgus would have had to return through the Void. This also explains the Vulgus second-in-command Aemon's letter in the record, A Message from Aemon. If you take that letter and you read the first letter of each sentence, you get Ancestor. This can't be a coincidence, because, as a Reddit user, sorry for my bad English 77 points out, in Korean, Aemon's message states he is the last ancestor. But we'll dive a little more into Aemon later on. What this tells me is that at some point in time, the Vulgus picked up some of the ancestors from the Bastion of Eternity, and at minimum, at least he surrendered to the Vulgus for the time being. Now, we do know the Vulgus army eventually makes their way to Ingress. But I thought originally the Vulgus arrived on the day of the apocalypse, which happened much later. But after looking into the game more, I came up with a different theory. One that I did not realize until I was rewatching cutscenes, but they actually mention in much more detail after the invasion storyline. When I read a mythical tale, everything changed for me. This piece of lore reads like a folk tale that's been passed down from generation to generation, but there's some great information in it. It tells of when gods and fairies walked the world. I believe these gods to be the original Colossi, because later records identify Colossi as God, and the fairies would be the ancestors. They enslaved the humans, which I take to mean the Arche users used their abilities to reign control, with most of the architects missing, and the humans were their subjects. The demon, of course, are the Vulgus, as is established in later records as well. It also tells how the gods and fairies combined could not defeat the demon, but the gods devised a plan, and with the help of the fairies, they put all their strength into a pocket which covered the skies, which caught the demon. But the demon's power was still too great, so they split the pocket into two and buried it, planting trees above them to keep constant vigil. One tree in the east, the other in the west. Let's take a listen to that full record just for transparency.
In a time long forgotten, when fairies and gods walked upon the earth, a time when humans were unable to break the chains of slavery that the fairies had bound them in. They say that it was during this time that evil demons invaded our world, an era lost to both darkness and age. The gods and fairies fought against the tides of demons, but were unable to match their overwhelming strength. And so, the gods devised a plan. They crafted a powerful pocket to capture and contain the demons. With the help of the fairies, the gods crafted this enormous pocket, large enough to cover the skies. And inside it, they put all of their strength so that they could successfully capture their foes. However, the power of the demons was still too great, but the pocket could not be discarded. So the pocket was split in two and buried in the ground, with a tree planted on top of each half to keep an eternal vigil over them. Thus, two gigantic trees continue to keep watch over these pockets from the east and the west.
Now we can see these trees in the game. One of them is in Vespers, while the others are in Echo. But now, with the return invasion ended, the architects have gone missing, and the ancestors are dying off quickly. So with the Vulgus and the architects trapped in the void, and the ancestors on the brink of extinction, the very few who remain have a brief divide on what to do next before they die out completely. So I believe at this point they program an AI into the Ironheart to help the humans understand the danger of the Ironheart and understand the need to have them destroyed, something they themselves cannot do. They call this AI the Guide. They then hide the Ironhearts across Ingress so they can stay hidden from the invaders. One of them is hidden in the temple during the introduction, another is hidden in a red sphere in the Agna Desert, and another is hidden by the tree in Vesper. After this, the last of the ancestors die out fully, and humanity enters a dark age. With everybody either deceased or trapped, an untold amount of time passes, and humanity has long forgotten about the war. A kingdom has popped up in Vesper, and a group of scholars are researching the huge tree. According to the lore piece Musings of a Scholar from some kingdom's forestry society, all of the scholars in the kingdom are together for the discussion. I believe this lore piece was written the day of the apocalypse. This and a mythical tale are both found in Vespers, right next to the gigantic tree. But when you look at that tree, it's destroyed, unlike the one in Echoes. I believe the scholars around this tree accidentally destroyed it while they were studying it, freed the pocket that was buried underneath it, and directly led to the apocalypse and the Vulgus return.
This gigantic tree is believed to have once been the subject of religious worship by the indigenous people of this zone. Scholars have been unable to provide an accurate explanation for the existence of this tree, and no one can say how it was able to grow to such a massive size. The origins of the tree cannot be found among the records stored within the National Library of the Kingdom. All that exists is a single record stating that the tree is much older than the kingdom itself. In the songs of the bards, this tree is said to be the domain of forest fairies from the legends of old. However, we all know that such claims belong in children's fairy tales. As such, scholars from the Kingdom's Arboretum have put together this discussion session to exchange ideas and theories. However, from the current atmosphere, it does not seem as if we will be able to reach a meaningful conclusion within a reasonable amount of time. Still, it is not every day that the most renowned scholars in the kingdom gather together, so some outcome must be agreed by the end of today.
According to some in-game notes that I'll put up on the screen right now if I can find, Sigma Sector is where the apocalypse started. Now, Sigma Sector is just to the west of the destroyed tree in Vespers that guarded that pocket dimension. This event led to a massive corruption of the Sigma Sector area, corrupting it from its natural terrain to the wasteland we see now, and encompassing it in a void zone. It also, I believe, helped corrupt Axion, turning it from a beautiful ocean to the barren wasteland we see today. I will admit, this is the part that tripped me up for the longest. I had to really think about how the apocalypse could start in Sigma Sector, while still there are records in Fortress and Kingston on the day of the apocalypse showcasing the first Vulgus appearance in eons. But I think what ended up happening is the ships appeared in Sigma Sector, and then they just moved. They traveled. And I think what ended up happening is they traveled to Kingston first, and maybe a little separate side fleet traveled off to Fortress and found where they would make their eventual base. So I'm going to play now Memories of a Terrified Hunter, Memories of the Apocalypse, and Survival Record, and then I'll discuss them after they're played.
There weren't many surprises to be found in these unforgiving mountains. Unless you ran into a hungry beast or a sudden snowstorm, there wasn't much that would disturb the tranquility of the snowy peaks. That is why the memories of that day are so deeply seared into my mind. It was a fairly clear day. A few clouds floated above, but it was far from a day where clouds foretold a coming snowstorm. But then, almost instantaneously, the sky went dark. A great roar ripped through the sky. Well, at least that's how I remember it. An enormous black shadow, which turned out to be a huge ship, covered the entire mountain. A flying ship that sailed through the skies. This black ship, spewing enough smoke to cover the world with inky darkness, crashed into the mountainside. The impact caused the largest avalanche I have ever seen. I had to run for my life, or that all-consuming avalanche would have seen the end of me. After the dust settled, I soon learned that the avalanche was not the only threat to my life. Hideous beings started to pour out of the ship. Those things that came bursting from the belly of that black ship had monstrous eyes, even more savage than the eyes of a starving beast. These demons held huge firearms in their hands, and they roared as if to rend the sky. They must have been demons. No beast could replicate the terrifying sounds that their lungs made. I can think of no word other than demons when I describe those creatures that tore through the sky. A noise gave away the hiding place of a few hunters nearby, and they were ruthlessly killed on the spot. I covered my mouth to stop myself making a sound even by breathing. I made a mad dash down the exposed mountainside. I had to escape. I didn't want to be captured by those demons and killed in the barren snowfields without a soul to help me.
What is up with this weather?
Johnson, I know you're trying to use the weather as an excuse to skip the evening shift again. If you need an excuse to do anything, it should be to practice your spearmanship. This may be our home territory, but our neighbors are definitely up to something.
Come on, Graham, we don't have anything valuable here, and our great knights will be able to hold anyone off. I think there's something you should be more worried about. Look at the sky. Does it look strange to you?
Wait until you're my age. My eyes don't work as well as they used to. You're right, though. The sky does look different somehow. But if this is one of your tricks to try and take the day off, Johnson, I'm going to report it.
It's not, I promise. Look over there. Is that a person?
A person? Are you sure? I can't see it clearly. What was that? A cannon? Johnson, you heard that too, didn't you?
Graham, did you see that? Their spear just spat fire!
This is no time to make jokes. Enemies, we're under attack.
It's a demon! Run, Graham, run!
Johnson, you need to go report to the captain quickly.
Graham! Graham! No! Wake up!
When I close my eyes, the horrible memories of that day come flooding back. The voices of demons, people screaming for mercy, the burning city. Steel armor was useless against the demons' weapons. All our knights and soldiers died, as if proving that humans fighting the demons was a lost cause. But thanks to their sacrifice, many people were able to escape. As I watched the city burn, I understood that the age of prosperity of humankind had ended. Now we faced an age of fighting for survival. Lavish accessories and fine clothes had become meaningless. What was valuable to me now were sturdy shoes which would not wear out. All kinds of people survived the demons' invasion. Knights, soldiers, merchants, the city's vagrants, and nobles like myself. Some idiots continued to hold their heads high, as if they expected their noble status to protect their lives. They didn't survive for long. To speak more precisely, they were ostracized. I knew this new world required one to relinquish both money and honor to survive. I had to survive, whatever the cost.
I'll never forget that morning's report. The first words out of that pale lieutenant's mouth were, "Demons had invaded." Demons. I reprimanded the lieutenant for the absurdity. Demons. We knights should be disciplined, not taken in by foolish jokes. But it did not take long for my face to become as pale as the lieutenant's. A great, ringing roar. There's no other way to describe the sound I heard. I shouted at my men to hurry and assess the situation, and grabbed my sword. And that was when I saw the unbelievable. Demons were descending from a great ship in the sky, pouring out like a painting of the apocalypse, but alive, happening before us. Their spears spat fire. The city crumbled from the explosions. People were dying everywhere. I immediately rallied the knights to fight back. But there was nothing we mere mortals could do in the face of the power of the demons. All we could do was pray for the mercy of the gods, for our own Retreat! Retreat! Every man for himself! Retreat and survive! It wasn't the only decision I could make.
I survived. When Graham fell, I gave up and ran. Thanks to that, I survived. The sight of the burning city remains a horrible, miserable memory. I don't know what happened to the people who escaped the city and scattered. I ran away, despite hearing the screams. I ran and ran until I couldn't hear them. After a few days, I finally met a group of survivors. They had fled from further north of the city. They told me to head south, to the mountains. They'd heard there was someone who was rallying survivors. I was hungry. When I thought about it, I hadn't had a proper meal in days. Fortunately, the group had some provisions. They shared their food without hesitation. As I wolfed it down, I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was relief at having survived, or from the shock of seeing the city on fire, or pity for Graham. Whatever it was, I couldn't stop the tears coming. So I joined the group of survivors, and I hoped our march for survival wouldn't be for nothing.
I can't remember how long I ran. When I came to my senses, I was surrounded by the faces of other distraught people. Like me, they had lost everything. They had all fled thinking only of their survival. But now they were finally realizing what they had lost. I felt myself smiling bitterly at the thought, and I saw my emotions reflected on their faces. Then we heard the sound of horses in the distance. We hid in the grass and behind rocks. Had the demons found us all the way out here? I could feel the tension in the air, but we realized we were overreacting. The demons had arrived on flying ships, not horses. When the riders arrived, they were human knights in armor. Relief washed over us. They told us to head south. Looking at the position of the sun, I realized we were already headed that way. Likely because there were fewer demons in that direction. The knights told us to look for other survivors and left. With hope renewed, we turned towards the south. We needed to head south to survive.
So while I think memories of the apocalypse and survival records happen first, I want to actually talk about memories of a terrified hunter. And that's because we can actually see the craft that this person is talking about in their record. This record is found right near this wreckage in Fallen Ark that I'm putting up on the screen right now. Therefore, it's a safe bet to assume the record is talking about this. But Kingston's records give us a slightly better rendition of what happened. And I do think both these events happened on the same day. We're talking about a variation of maybe an hour. Both events for sure still happened on the day of the apocalypse. The other records show Soldier Cody Johnson and Alice as the apocalypse hit Kingston. Soldier Cody was an important figure during this time and was present at several of the events I will discuss going forward. As established in the very opening cinematic, after the apocalypse, the Vulgus just destroyed the human forces, massacring everyone. An important note to make is that none of the technology we see in the game was used at this point in time. Now, this is roughly a century before the game's main story. The humans were using swords and horses, having lost almost all technology from the time of the ancestors. Technology they would not get back until the Magisters defected from the Vulgus. It's also around this time, established in the opening cinematic, that a new general takes up command of the Vulgus army. His name is Corel. Corel proves to be even more bloodthirsty and cruel than the general they had before, and the war looks even more bleak for humans. One day, early in the morning, a death god fell from the sky. Based on records, we can assume this Colossus was the executioner, as told by a blurb written on the executioner page. Later on, during a battle between humanity and the Vulgus, Pyromaniac fell from the sky. As heard in Encounter 2, not even the Vulgus stood a chance against it. Let's take a listen to both of those records, too.
It happened in the early hours of the morning, while it was still dark. I saw it with my own eyes. Something enormous crawling down through the darkness. It was no demon. It was something far deadlier than the demons which had terrorized us. It was the Reaper. This death god shot lightning and killed everything in its sight. My fellow refugees, my siblings. The Reaper executed everyone. When I close my eyes, I can still hear the sounds. People screaming. The death god approaching. I am unable to move. I am unable to do anything at all. The spear in my hand is useless. I am unable to save anyone. I couldn't run. All I could do was pray for the end of this nightmare. And I alone survived, I think. Were there any other survivors? I see. Not one. So, I am the sole survivor. Did you find any traces of the death god? Please tell me if you do. I wish to be as far from it as I am able. Nobody can defeat the Reaper. Not even the demons. If you need it, you will die. If you want to live, I suggest you put as much distance between yourself and it as you can. With each passing day, the demons attacked us less often. That didn't mean there were no casualties. Soldiers, knights, and those who had fallen behind all sacrificed themselves. Thanks to them, we were finally able to evade the demons. There was no joy to be had in surviving, no sorrow to honor the dead, no guilt in feeling alone. And then we faced another onslaught from the enemy. The demons surrounded us and laughed, as if it were clear not a single soul would escape. The moment their weapons lit up, we were all doomed to die. Suddenly, a giant shadow appeared overhead. We only understood what was happening when we looked up. Something enormous had covered the entire sky. It was neither human or demon. It was pure, unfeeling death, with an eerie sound of scraping metal. It moved its head, and then the massacre began. Everything that crossed its path died, humans and demons alike. The demons' weapons continued to spit fire to no avail, but we could not give up our fight for survival. We had lost too much to surrender now.
So that thing, is this the death god you spoke of?
It is. I thought we had evaded it, but it was close behind us. Stay low and be careful, unless you have a death wish.
Can't see us from that distance.
It appeared from nowhere and killed everything. Do you think mere distance matters?
I see. You said this monster even massacred the demons.
The only method of escape is to get as far away from it as possible. I know this because it is how I survived until now.
Stop! It appears to be looking this way.
Get down and don't move.
Oh, it didn't see us.
Do you now trust me? The best course of action is to get as far away from it as possible.
Agreed. Tell the others to stay low and keep moving. We must head south while evading this monster. Cody, commit its appearance and characteristics to the record. I have a terrible feeling he's not the only one out there.
So, with both the Colossus and the Vulgus, humanity was truly backed into a corner. Luckily for them, though, their saving grace would be a race of Vulgus called the Magisters. Aeneas felt Corel was crossing a line in search of the Ironheart, so she determined she wanted to betray the Vulgus and help humanity survive, as Corel was becoming a problem even for his own side. Listening to records of the Magisters too, we can hear her reasoning on why she wanted to switch.
The beings who appeared call themselves the Magisters. Some believed we should kill them outright, but I knew we had to speak with them first. We needed to understand why these demons had invaded our world. The Magisters told us that the demons were called the Vulgus, a race from another world. The Magisters said they were a faction of Vulgus, but that they had opposed the invasion and had come to side with humans. As I was the one who had gathered and led the survivors, the choice fell to me. Should we trust these Magisters, or kill them all? Were we humans even capable of killing them? The arrival of the Magisters split our group of survivors into two. Their appearance alone put our survival into jeopardy. How could we ever survive when all we knew had been destroyed and we had lost everyone we cared about? However, our arguments were fundamentally meaningless. We were powerless to rail against the demons without their help. The Magisters helped us gather the other survivors. After feeling completely helpless, thanks to them, we now had a future. The Vulgus had tried to exterminate us. But, ironically, it was the Vulgus who saved us. At the suggestion of the Magisters, I rallied the survivors and led them to the harsh mountains in the south. As they had said, the Vulgus attacks stopped as soon as we entered the mountains. And as the enemy attacks became less frequent, so too did the cries of those who demanded death to the Magisters. I remain troubled. Should we continue to trust them? I am unsure whether I was ever qualified to even lead the survivors.
Aeneas, do you really believe that humans can survive against Corel?
Corel has crossed a line. If he obtains the device, there will be irreversible consequences. He doesn't appreciate the power it contains. His only interest is in his agenda.
Then do you believe humans will ever be able to reach the truth? They are inferior beings who still use iron as their primary metal. Are you going to trust our future to them? And again, I ask, do you believe humanity can survive against Corel?
Not as they currently are. But what if we were to help them awaken their true potential?
You are prepared to wager our fate on a mere possibility. You know full well that no one can guarantee the authenticity of the records.
Are you satisfied with living as we do now? Working as slaves to the Vulgus, Corel, in unceasing preparation for war?
Aeneas, you've seen much further ahead than I have.
No, I merely calculated the possibilities, and I was convinced.
All right. I accept your conviction as sufficient reason.
However, listening to Records 1, we can see humanity was not immediately forthcoming to trust them, and to an extent, they don't fully trust them to this day, as the Magisters want the Ironhearts, something humanity doesn't really want to give up. But humanity knows they stand no chance without them, so they reluctantly agree to let them help. The Magisters then agree to a deal with humanity to help them until the Vulgus and Corel are defeated, and so they set to work on the ultimate weapon, something that would lead the changing of the tide of battle and it would lead to a brand new age of humanity, the age of the Descendant. The Magisters then begin recreating the work of the ancestors, and they create the Descendant. They discovered special locations that were created during the original age called Prime Hand. We understand more about them by looking at the Bastion of Humanity and Magister Observation Report, Agent number 6. These records give us more information on the daily interactions between the Magisters and humanity.
Humanity survives. They stubbornly continue to pursue existence in Albion, a final bastion created by gathering all their remaining resources within a remote mountain range. This location, once thought to have been an architect facility, is the perfect position for their final fortress. Humanity entered into an agreement with us Magisters. We gave them technology and the knowledge of how to fight back, while fortifying Albion and providing them with somewhere they could survive. We also created the ultimate weapon for them. Or to be more precise, we have awakened the ultimate weapon for them. In the distant future, once the Descendants have completely reclaimed the lands that humanity lost, this place will look different. After then, humans will continue to disperse to find places to call their own. This city will become an empty husk. The day that the last enemy falls, the day that our agreement with humanity finally comes to an end. In order to usher in that day, we continue to create weapons for those who are humanity's last hope.
The Magisters are a race with profound intelligence and were responsible for the development and research of weaponry as well as facilities within the Vulgus. However, they were also the lowest class of Vulgus, a slave class. There is speculation that they were not always within the slave class. Even shortly after joining humanity, there were clear class distinctions among them. From their stories of past glories, humanity was able to deduce they had a resentment toward the elite Vulgus. The Magister's contact with humanity was within a decade or so after the apocalypse, when the Vulgus came from Kliphoth to Ingress. The reasons for approaching humanity are complex, but Axiom was the biggest reason. To join humanity, the Magisters made a mass exodus, taking with them key development components, materials from Kliphoth, and research they were working on. To protect against the risk of these being stolen during their escape, they created encrypted vaults and hid them throughout Ingress. They can only be opened by Magisters or humans who possess Arche, the Descendants, which suggests that Magisters knew of Arche's existence before they joined humanity, and they designed their vaults with the certainty humanity would be on their side. The Magisters caught in the act of fleeing the incurred wrath of Corel and the Dominator. General Aemon, the leader of the Legion of Immortality, who had been placed in charge of them, was held accountable. When it was discovered they had tried to collude with humanity, the vast majority of Magisters were purged, and those who remained were sent to various parts of Ingress, where the remains of the ancestors were thought to be buried and forced into servitude. A prime example of this is the Asylum in Agna Desert. A second attempt to escape was made by some of the Magisters, and eventually the Legion of Immortality was moved to a military facility in the Sterile Land. The Agna Desert would be placed under Corel's command. I noticed something unusual about these allies of humans in Albion. There is a hierarchy among the Magisters, but unlike regular Vulgus troops, there are no titles or honorifics during their ranks. This is believed to be due to a long history of lack of respect within the Vulgus, as well as their internal rules, including their council election process. There are 3 ranks of Magisters: chairmen, counselors, and artisans, and the ranks appear to be the subject to change based on internal rules. All Magisters are members of the council and can apply for and be elected to the position of chairman if they hold the rank of counselor. Albion HQ cannot intervene in their matters of rank or hierarchy, and the Council of Magisters has access to and can provide input to all of Albion Headquarters' most sensitive secrets and operations. Furthermore, Albion Headquarters is responsible for accommodating or fulfilling the demands of the Council of Magisters to the fullest extent possible.
The research ends up being a success, and this leads to the records the day the Descendants were born 1, 2, and 3. The Magisters tell Commander Owens about a spot in a mountain range, and it has what they need for a defense as well as to awaken Arche. They then gather humans from several different regions across the map and try to awaken their Arche, with the first one to successfully awaken their abilities being a man named Rayleigh. Let's play all 3 of those records right now.
Magister and Ace told us about a mysterious power called Arche. Only humans are able to manipulate Arche, and it is a power inherent to the life of this world. We were told that if even one person could be found who was able to wield Arche and unleash its potential, they will gain the power to take on the Vulgus and even the Colossi. They took us to a site in this mountain range. The ruins looked incredibly old and contained mysterious structures made of unfamiliar materials. The Magisters had foreseen our journey from the start. This is why they guided the survivors to this place. This structure was our destination from the very beginning. Many questions were raised. People began to doubt the Magisters again, and the Magisters could only relate what they had already said. They could not manipulate Arche, and thus, even their own understanding of it was based on theory. And so I, as representative of the survivors, had to make a decision. Subscribe to the Magister's theories, or attempt survival on our own. It was a difficult choice. Whichever future I chose was uncertain, and thus I made my decision. If both outcomes were unknown, then I chose to bet on the one with the greater promise of reward.
All preparations had been completed. Though we were working from theories, we were thorough. After reviewing the records and analyzing the terrain of Ingress, I finally confirmed the correct location. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The Prone Hands is undergoing readjustment and is almost ready to operate. All the candidates showed talent. However, I don't expect all of them to succeed. I don't even believe they will be able to awaken Arche on their first try. According to my calculations, perhaps 2 of them may be successful. It's a small chance, but it's worth a try. And eventually, I had the results. We couldn't contain our excitement. It was only one, but still, one human was able to awaken Arche and inherit the latent power of their ancestors. These were the first steps. The first steps to reaching the truth.
There were times when I felt strange sensations. I thought everyone felt them, but as I grew older, I realized that I had special abilities. I could see better and hear better than other people. Then Magister Nace explained it to me. It was Arche. They told me that Arche was a special power which existed only in this world, and even amongst humankind, only a few people had a small potential to manipulate it. In order to forcibly realize this potential, volunteers were needed for the first experiment. Though the title no longer carries any meaning, I am still a knight. I do not know if I still have a lord to serve, but as a knight, I should not refuse an opportunity to become stronger. And so, I was one of multiple volunteers who stepped up. Each of us stood in front of a strange-looking structure. The Magisters explained that this device was made by beings who ruled this world a long time ago. I don't know how they knew this, but I had to believe them. If it wasn't for the Magisters, many more would have died before we reached this point. We had no other choice but to trust them. The structure lit up and started operating, and I finally knew what the sensations meant. My senses expanded, and what used to feel like grasping in the dark became clear. I could feel the presence of RK. Now, I do not fear the unknown enemy Vulgus.
The rest of the potential descendants also get their powers awoken as well, leading to the first generation of descendants called the Generation of Despair. Now we know at least 6 members of that generation thanks to the Descendant Relic Analysis record. The first one on this list is Serena Antonietta, who we know was captured by the Vulgus and held in Sigma Sector, being awoken almost a century after her disappearance.
Descendant Serena body armor fragment. Judging by its structure, it seems to be a fragment from the left shoulder blade. ID, Serena Antonietta. Affiliation, formerly Albion Fortress Monastery. Originally, Knight of the Kingston Order of Light, joined Albion after the Apocalypse, organized the surviving Knights of the Albion Fortress Monastery to stand against the Vulgus. Awakened as a descendant after she was confirmed to possess an RK factor. Searching additional records, disappeared after an expedition to the Land of Annihilation, presumed to have been killed in action. While there are signs of partial utilization of Magister technology, the body armor's primary design still appears to be based on pre-apocalypse body armor style. Unlike the thicker body armor of other descendants, it is lightweight for maneuverability, a feature that was clearly considered during the making of the body armor to allow Serena to utilize her RK abilities. Utilizing the scan data, we are hopeful that we can restore the RK linking processes for early body armor construction, which have been lost. I will upload the analyzed data to the Asive.
The second one is a man named Morval.
Hypothesis. A long-weathered fragment of Descendant body armor. Notes. Has a distinctive form from existing Descendant body armor in the database. Retrieving records for Descendant Morvald. Results. Unknown. Name. Unknown. Place of birth. Unknown. Age. Unknown. Known results. Codename Morvald. Records indicate that he put in a request for extremely light armor. After becoming a Descendant, a special suit of body armor was created just for him. The body armor was built to the specifications he suggested. As a Descendant, he scouted and assassinated targets forming the Morvald Special Forces, a special organization that would become known as the foundation of the Colon Special Forces. He was also credited as the originator of the Colon Special Forces Number 0. Searching for any surviving records of action. Results unknown. While it appears to be a simple lump of black rock, but scans confirm it to be a piece of Descendant body armor from around the time of the Apocalypse. It's likely that we would never have found this without RK scanning technology. The body armor appears to have maximized the use of noise suppression and lightweight technology. We may be able to analyze the technology and use it to develop new Descendant suits. I will send you the data.
The third data entry is about the first ever Descendant, Rayleigh.
Starting analysis, detecting strong residual RK energy, confirming energy pattern analysis presumably belonging to Descendant Rayleigh. Notes: no DNA information of Rayleigh exists in the Albion database, making exact identification impossible. Name: Rayleigh. Rayleigh, the first Descendant. No pre-apocalypse information remains. United the survivors after the apocalypse and joined Albion. After being awakened as the very first Descendant, he accomplished the feat of defeating a Colossus for the first time in human history. Of the many individuals who became Descendants at the time, Rayleigh is noted to have possessed the most particularly powerful RK abilities. Most of his records have since been destroyed, leaving no detailed data. Analysis of the residual RK patterns closely matches Rayleigh, but I cannot be certain due to the inaccuracy and loss of many of his records. Using the found data as a baseline, we can lay the groundwork for tracking his records in the future. I will upload the data to the Asive for analysis.
The fourth is on a man named Sansbury.
Detecting RK genetic information of Descendant Sans. Notes: finished analyzing the reverse engineering algorithm. Highly likely that this body armor was designed to be balanced, but not tuned to any particular ability. However, more accurate data is required. Name: Sansbury. Affiliation: Hagios Crusader. Known results: codename Sans. He led the Hagios Crusaders alongside Rayleigh and is known to be from Hagios. He's a particularly prolific member of the Generation of Despair. A descendant who wore a unique set of body armor known as the Reaper Skull. Sans earned the nickname Reaper, and the skull-shaped helmet was made at his insistence. This was likely driven by an intense vendetta against the Vulgus. Indeed, records confirm that he slaughtered the Vulgus mercilessly, which also confirmed the nickname Reaper was given to him by his enemies. He is unaccounted for after the Echo Swamp operation, and he was later recorded to have been killed in action. Multiple traces of human DNA have been detected on the relic. Analysis confirms it to be Arche DNA, matching the genetic information of Sainsbury in the Albion database. He likely died of blood loss, so we'll need additional assistance from the excavation team if we wish to investigate further.
The fifth one is Percy.
Starting analysis. Fragment of Magister's prototype prosthetic arm. Analyzing archetype. Confirmed to belong to the descendant Percy. Notes. On record as the first prototype body armor crafted in Albion using Ancestors technology. Name, Percy. Affiliation, Hagios Crusaders. Percy, a paladin of the Hagios Crusaders. He lost his arm in battle after becoming a descendant, but is said to have fought fiercely and returned after defeating all of his enemies. The event earned him the nickname Indomitable Percy and led the Magisters to create the first Arche-Drive prosthetic arm. The device was then delivered to him alongside the Indomitable Knight, a specialized suit prototype restored by studying the technology of the Ancestors. Afterwards, Descendant Percy distinguished himself on the field of battle again and again before being killed in action. However, much of the experimental data on the body armor was lost. Records indicate that all past body armor was either recovered or destroyed on the battlefield to prevent the leaking of Ancestor technology, but fragments of them can still be found all over ancient battlefields. It may be a good idea to suggest that a specialized team be assembled to collect the debris from these battlefields going forward. I will upload the data from the analysis on the remaining Arche factor and found in the body armor to the Asive.
And the last one is a man named Ron Mann.
Confirmation. Matches the records of Descendant Manus in the database. Notes. Confirms superalloy blend of steel and Kuiper. The Kuiper content of this alloy is below the current minimum standard. Name, Ron Manus. Affiliation, Exorcist Knights of Kingston. Member of the Exorcist Knights of Kingston, he organized the defense of the stronghold, and is known for his special experimental body armor. At the time, they lacked the technology to apply Arche shields. This special body armor is the result of focusing on achieving maximum physical defense with a small amount of Kuiper alloy. Researchers decided to sacrifice mobility for maximum protection. They delivered it to the descendant, Manus, who was from Vespers. Subsequently, it was destroyed in battle with no surviving sample in Albion. A request exists to send any examples believed to be part of this body armor to the Council of Magisters, if found. Residual traces of several chemicals used to manipulate Kuiper reactivity have been detected, likely from the various processes required to create this prototype. I've identified body armor components that are curiously superior to those of the current generation of battlesuits. Analyzing them will allow us to introduce new technologies to improve the strength of the Descendants' equipment while only using a small amount of Kuiper. I will upload the main analysis data to the Asive.
We can find the armor pieces of many spread throughout Ingress, but this does not mean they are necessarily dead, as keep in mind, Serena's armor piece was found, but she's still very much alive and playable. A few of the Descendants even have their records destroyed, which adds to the mystery. Rayleigh was the first Descendant who battled a Colossus and won, with Soldier Cody being present for this battle as well. We can still see the corpse of this battle in Ingress today, as seen by what I've put on the screen. But unfortunately at the moment, this is all we know about Rayleigh because everything else was destroyed.
It's fallen. It's defeated. The Colossus has fallen.
We can confirm the Grey Walker has ceased moving. Remain vigilant. We do not know what might happen. Do not make any sudden moves.
So, this is the true power of Arche.
Rayleigh, this is incredible. Did you truly defeat the Colossus? Finally, we have hope. Is that the true power of Arche? Can I become a descendant too?
I do not know, Cody. It would be more appropriate to ask that of the Magisters. Still, hope. Yes, I suppose we could say we now have hope.
I believe in you, Rayleigh, but How can a person such as myself become a descendant?
The Magisters say that anyone could become a descendant. Don't give up. You never know what may come to pass.
Enough chatter. We have confirmed that the enemy has ceased moving entirely, and we will begin the retrieval operation. Ray, you did well. You can rest for now. Everyone else, get to it. Cody, you as well.
Yes, sir. I'm going.
I never believed the Colossus could be defeated. The Magisters said it was possible, but I still cannot comprehend it. Even though I have seen it with my own eyes.
Commander, I believe it is now time to strike back.
Now, over time, much of the generation of despair would either die or go missing in battle, and new descendants would train up and develop powers similar to those of the ancestors, with some of them even battling Corel himself over the next half century.
I remember the day I became a descendant and embraced Arche. It enveloped me. I was filled with confidence that I could do anything. It was an incredible experience. After becoming a descendant, defeating the Vulgus army became straightforward. We were convinced that with enough descendants, we could fight off the Vulgus and retake Ingress. Perhaps we failed because of our overconfidence. One day, we set out to give the Vulgus a taste of their own medicine. It was a simple mission to raise their outposts and ruin their supplies. With the power of the Descendants, it should have been easily accomplished. But HQ did not account for one important factor: the existence of Corel. The one who commanded the Vulgus. He alone thwarted all we had planned. New weapons, bombs with enough firepower to wipe out an entire region. The use of Arche to accomplish the impossible. None of it worked against him. There's a power difference we were unable to overcome. And finally, we understood why the Magisters insisted on such passive, localized warfare. Why they planned a defensive strategy centered around Albion. As clear as the first day I became a descendant, Corel's power was engraved on my memory. If humankind want to retake Ingress someday, they should remember. As long as Corel is breathing, that opportunity will never arise.
Roughly 50 years before the events of the game, a descendant named Alexander Grant completed his training to become Alpha, and as per Albion's customs, he had all records of his name and his past expunged. He then, on his first official mission as Alpha, rejected the advice of his advisors and went to save a soldier in the field.
The Vulgus ambush caught us between one breath and the next. Our supply operation was crushed, our convoy decimated, and supply soldiers like myself were retreating, terrified. We had all volunteered because we knew Albion desperately needed to secure a new base. We knew it would be dangerous, but expanding our area of operations was paramount. Our supplies were falling low, we would have starved to death otherwise. So, I volunteered to save my people. But when we were attacked by the Vulgus, all I could think about was trying to survive. I thought I was gonna die. The Vulgus surrounded us and we had nowhere to run. And then, in that moment, we were saved. Our salvation was one-man army. If it weren't for that descendant, we wouldn't be alive today. We found out later it was his first actual battle. If it were me, I would have been trembling, but he did it effortlessly. I heard he came after the operation was officially over and against orders from HQ. Apparently he was reprimanded for it, but I I do not believe he did anything wrong. I mean, I'm alive because of him, you see? Just you wait. One day, everyone will know that Descendant's name. One day he might even become a famous commander. His name was... I believe he went by the name of Alpha.
Alpha served for over 40 years as a descendant, having been one of the most powerful descendants over the course of his life. Serving alongside Alpha were two other descendants named Ajax and Aisha. Ajax was another powerful descendant, but his true passion lay in teaching. And on the day he was to start teaching, he learned that his beloved Aisha was going on a mission that was meant for him. We can learn what happened to that mission through records detailing the descent of the team, which I will now play in the order that I believe they happened.
Is everyone alive? Damn it, even a sea calls it out. Everyone, if you can hear me, please respond.
Oh, this is James. I'm hurt, but still alive.
I'm alive too.
Captain, James, Marie, are you all right? My arm.
Thank heavens you're alive. Everybody, give me an injury report.
Apart from a broken arm, I'm fine.
I think I broke a rib. Other than that, I'm alive. But James is in a critical condition. He has multiple fractures and he might be bleeding internally. All right, let's take care of James first. Everybody, gather around James.
I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. It's not your fault.
He's right. It's treatable, James. Just hold tight. Captain, I have examined the liquid inside this capsule. It contains a high concentration of ingredients that enhance cell regeneration. Judging by the composition of the formula, it appears to be a kind of growth serum, but there are some ingredients that I haven't come across before, so I can't be sure. And it's a very high concentration. I don't know if it can be used on humans.
Captain, let's try experimenting with a very small dose. James's condition is severe, and his wound is starting to show signs of an amorphous phenomena.
Captain! I want to live.
Okay. The most important thing right now is saving James. Marie, I'll take full responsibility. Let's inject the smallest dose possible. Roger that. I've adjusted the quantity to the smallest possible dose. I'll inject him now.
Aisha, look at that. James's wound is healing already.
The extremely high concentration must be why we can see him regenerating. James, tell me if you feel any discomfort.
I feel a little nauseous and strange. It's like my muscles are moving by themselves. The pain is going away, though.
Really? Marie, give me a dose of that growth serum too. The pain in my arm is starting to become unbearable.
All right, Edwin. I can also feel your broken rib seeping into your lungs. I'm gonna give you an even smaller dose than James. Here, let me see your shoulder.
Oh. Yeah, I'm glad the captain is alright. At least our captain is unbreakable.
Eddie, that's not funny. Do you know how worried I am?
I just want to help you relax, Captain. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have known what to do with ourselves.
That's right. And what's important is that we have one less wounded. You can relax, Captain. If everybody is feeling better, I'd like to search inside. This giant facility must have something more than just this growth serum.
I can tell that this place is huge just from the echo. Even the hallway goes on forever. Why does a facility like this exist in the void of this? Is this a vulgar ship?
Let's see if there's anything we can use for repairs first. I've checked our comms equipment, but it's completely shot.
Damn it.
Where the hell are we going to current detect Alchemy? Is there really no way to contact Albion?
Let's not rush to conclusions.
What's most important right now is to focus and trust our instincts. I will never give up on you, so don't give up on me now either.
Cap's right. Let's go. Now that we're healed, there's nothing to be afraid of.
And now that we have that serum, we can cure ourselves in no time.
Right. Everyone up on your feet. Let's get moving and look for anything useful.
Kill! Kill! Oh, kill! James! James, what's the matter? Snap out of it! Hey!
Hold on! Everybody stand back! James is changing.
Damn it! James!
No. Could it be because of the serum? Then Edwin and I could...
Marie! Don't jump to conclusions. Nothing's happened yet. We were exposed to large amounts of void energy on our way here. What's happening to James could be because of void energy. So calm down and get moving.
Aisha, are you saying we should give up on James? We have to find a way to help him.
Eddie, we have to survive in order to save James. Don't look back, just run.
No. No. That's not James. That monster can't be James.
You're right. That must be a monster just impersonating James. That monster can't be James. Can it?
Marie, Edwin, pull yourselves together. We have to remain calm.
How can we stay calm in a situation like this? Captain, you saw it too. You saw what James turned into. The same could happen to us. Can you promise us nothing will happen? How the hell are we going to survive the void? I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I want to live.
Oh, Captain, I feel weird. Captain, Marie, help me. My body, it doesn't feel right.
Eddie, what's wrong? No! Eddie, get a hold of yourself, please.
I feel so cold. So cold. I can't stand it.
Marie,
I hate the world. I hate it so much. I want to kill everyone. Everyone. I want everyone to feel how cold I am and my pain.
Look at me. Oh, my body. I'm a wreck. Why is our captain okay? Oh, Captain, you didn't take the serum. Oh, Captain, you're amazing. You survived even in a situation like this. How does it feel to watch us all die?
Captain, why do you look so sad? Aren't you happy to survive out of all of us? It feels good, doesn't it? To watch us become monsters.
No, that's not true. Please, don't do this to me. This is Aisha Vanessa. It's been 7 days since I set out on my own. As to the whereabouts of the others, I don't know. I only hear occasional screams. I've encountered the Vulgus. There was a firefight, but I had to retreat because I was outnumbered. While retreating, the floor collapsed, and I fell to where I am now. I don't know if I can sleep. If only Ajax was here. Ajax would have found a safe way back. I shouldn't have sent that comm signal. I'm sorry for putting you in danger. I know Ajax is probably blaming himself. I can't let my emotions get the better of me. Right now, escaping this ship will allow me the highest chance of survival. James's arm pierced the hull of the ship. He tried to escape through the hole. Screaming seems to have stopped. I better get moving. Wait. Where's my handgun? Did I drop it? No. Ajax engraved a rose on it for my birthday. Damn it!
Idiots! How dare you! I'll kill you! I'll kill you! I'll kill every one of you! Don't touch that! That's valuable data! The data! Priceless! It hurts! It hurts! You idiots! It's all because of you! All because of you! Starving! I'm starving to death! It's all your fault! No! No! I didn't do anything wrong! It's not me! Stop! Stop! Don't ride it any further! You! Yes! You!
Now, this ship that Aisha's team journeyed to was the Bastion of Eternity that I mentioned at the beginning, and the substances they took were the same ones given to the soldiers back then to create the Colossi. We know this because everyone but Aisha in the squad becomes Colossi, and we actually fight at least one of them in the Void Abyss. This is also the same Void Vessel we travel to in the missions. I'll go more into the story of Aisha and Ajax if I get around to doing the character lore deep dives that I really want to do. But for now, we're going to leave it there. We're going to go back to Alpha, and by this point, I would like to point out he has lost his RK abilities and is mainly relegated to leading from HQ at this point. Around this time, a man named Seneca, who specializes in the Void, discovers that Descendants can be sent into the void space to intercept Colossi before they reach England. This is tested a few times unsuccessfully before Ajax finally manages to get it done. And we can learn a little bit more about those in these records right here.
It's not a happy memory, my time in the void. A realm where chaos reigns, the laws of reality don't apply. A world of Colossus. I don't like the idea of going back there. If Seneca miscalculates and we get stuck in the void, many of the Descendants could die. But he has a point. If we could intercept the Colossus in the void before it reaches Ingress, then we wouldn't have to worry about it attacking us. We could prevent future catastrophic losses of lives. The only problem is how much I can trust Seneca. Doesn't feel right having to rely on someone else's calculations to get back to the void. But I can't see another way. And I can't leave it to the rookie Descendants. I guess I don't have a choice. I'll make sure Alpha compensates me well for this.
At this point in time, we're now going to move into the main lore of the game, as we're pretty well caught up with where the game starts us off. And I've decided to split this into a second age that I will be calling the Ultimate Age. Because this is where Descendants first start getting their ultimate abilities and become Ultimate Descendants, something that never happened beforehand. This is the part where we start actually playing the story. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to be slightly less specific in the lore because all of this is playable, and if you'd like to see any cutscenes, I would highly recommend watching Whispering Hawk's playthrough of the base game and consecutive seasons to this point. We know that humanity's been searching for the Ironhearts for years, but never once had luck with finding them. But one day they finally get a break. They discover one of the Ironhearts in a facility, and either Ajax, Viessa, or Lepik can join Bunny on that mission. They get to the Ironheart, and when the player touches it, they go to a space where their unconscious mind travels. This is where they meet the guy that was programmed earlier. They extract the Ironheart from the facility, but they get caught by Corel, who takes it
and leaves the injured Descendants to fight the Grave Walker who appears. After returning to headquarters, Command decides to trust the guide, and she asks for them to retake a facility to turn her functionalities back online. They manage to do this, and the guide regains those abilities. The next place the Descendants go to is the Sterile Land, where there's an Ironheart excavation site. After searching the land and meeting a Descendant named Jeremy, they fail to locate the Ironheart, but we learn that Corel wants to invert the data from an Ironheart. We also learn that Vulgus General Aemon has some familiarity with these Ironhearts. And this is the section where we start to learn a little more about his actions. We go to Vespers, where we meet Freyna and Glay. Jeremy does some tracking, and he discovers the ancestors kept the Ironheart in a vault. The Descendants break in and discover the Ironheart, but Jeremy betrays them, taking the Ironheart for himself, claiming that HQ ordered him to do so when that never happened. He then deactivates his Ascive and flees to Echo Swarm, planning to make artificial soldiers, which worries HQ. HQ then rightly brands Jeremy a traitor, and the Descendants work to get the Ironheart back. Jeremy then captures Essimo, and the Vulgus all sense something going on. So Jeremy sneaks into a place called the Seed Vault and took things he needed to fuse his body with Vulgus. He then goes to a defeated executioner's body, attempting to activate the Ironheart, only to finally be killed by Corel. Oh, look at that. It's so satisfying to see. I could watch Jeremy get his neck snapped all day. Anyway, Luna and Kyle discover a pulsing red orb in the Agna Desert, so the Descendants go there. They discover the bones of an animal that's related to an Arche weapon that was used. After analyzing the bones, a mission is organized to receive the third Ironheart from the sphere, which turns out to be a success. Included in the third Ironheart are instructions for inversion. Alpha wants to use this to close the dimensional wall, but after being convinced that it would have adverse effects, he decides not to do it in Albion directly, so they go to do it in the White Knight Forge. Eugen asks us to search for his unit, who was lost, and we find them only to discover they're either mutated or dead. We then use the Ironheart to close the dimensional wall, but it fails and causes a pyromaniac to appear, which we defeat. At this point, the guide learns her true purpose was to destroy the Ironhearts, and so she sets out trying to do just that. Meanwhile, we fall into a Vulgus trap and barely manage to escape with our lives. They then take the uninverted Ironheart. This is when Alpha realizes the Ironhearts are more trouble than they're worth and gives the command to destroy them. We learn that Corel has one in Hagios, near the Prime Hands, so we set out to defeat him. But by the time the Descendants get there, it's too late. They've managed to connect it to the Prime Hands and open the dimensional wall, but the Descendants can transfer the Ironheart into their subconscious, which now means they have one Ironheart safely under their control. With the Ironheart in their subconscious, it means they could only extract it once, and they cannot fail destroying it. At this point, the guide was now able to access the inversion database stored in an Ironheart, and she knew that inverting an already inverted Ironheart would completely destroy it, but it would also destroy everything around. So with that in mind, there was only one place they could do it, the Vulgus Fortress. Jaber manages to close the Vulgus comms devices so Corel never notices the Descendants are there. They locate an Ironheart furnace which could be used to destroy it. A soldier named Kulon was defending the fortress, a soldier who had defeated several Colossi single-handedly. Luckily, the Descendants won and managed to take over these facilities, and wasted no time destroying the Iron, which pulls the player into the void. But Seneca was successfully able to pull them. After the main campaign, we're now sitting at Corel having 2 Ironhearts and was planning his next attack, while the Descendants had destroyed theirs. The next phase would come as an invasion. And just before the invasion, the Magisters discovered something that could make Descendants even more powerful.
They discover ultimate technology that allows descendants to become ultimate versions of themselves. The first ultimate would end up being Bunny, and that tech was another huge success by the humans. Viessa, Glay, Ajax, and Lepic would all then get ultimate forms very quickly after. We can learn a little bit about the creation of the Ultimate Descendants by reading Ultimate Descendant R&D Journal. So let's take a listen to that.
Our intention was not to simply replicate the ancestors. Rather, it was more out of necessity. When calculating the future of this war, by taking into account all possible variables and considerations, it became clear that with our current strength, the Vulgus could not be defeated. The battle power of the awakened descendants, however, completely exceeds that of the Vulgus combatants. The Descendants' battle power, aided by newly developed weapons and suits, is a testament to humanity's potential, exceeding our previous expectations. But that is not enough. It is we, the Magisters, who know the power of the Vulgus better than anyone else. So we must be prepared. That is precisely what drove this research. Fortunately, the process of analyzing existing data and reconstructing was fairly straightforward. It appears the time has come to begin the project, which was only at the research stage, to awaken the ultimate descendants, in earnest, so we can face Corel. Since the Ironheart has finally been revealed to the world, the need for power to defeat Corel has never been more justified. Finally, the time has come for our protracted research to come to fruition.
Now that the Ultimates are created, the invasion began with descendants getting ill from their arche. The inverted energy going into them from the final mission of the campaign caused their power to always want to consume more. However, constantly consuming more and more energy would cause the descendants to essentially pop. But the guide discovered a device that would enable them to have the benefits of the energy, but also reset periodically so they don't die. And Alpha was the first one to test this ability, and it appeared to have success, if not immediately, like we'll talk about later. After the testing, the Descendants learned that the youngest member of the Descendant Corps, Haley, is trapped in the fortress area. Alpha sends a team out, and they have to fight a powerful soldier, but the fight goes awry at the end, with the Descendant having debris fall on him. This means the commander almost gets away before Haley comes in and saves the day. We then obtain Eamon's letter, mentioned before, and we have a scene where Alpha suggests the conflict between the ancestors and the Vulgus. This is where we get Eamon's letter that paints out he's an ancestor and direct confirmation that there were in fact skirmishes between the ancestors and the Vulgus, outside of just records. A little more time passes and Albion discovers a vessel in the Void Abyss. They contact a group called Hound, which is made up of Keelan and Inez, among others, but they're very shorthanded. They send the player in with Keelan, and Keelan discovers the Vulgus are already there, as well as a dog. Several repeated missions to the area discover the ship was an ancestor ship, the Bastion of Eternity, and they reveal the records I referenced at the beginning of this video. Armed with the knowledge of connections between the ancestors and the Colossi, the Descendants get to work until they discover a Vulgus fleet in the Sigma sector, a location they believe was lost. This is where the apocalypse originated, as I mentioned earlier. They also discover the Vulgus are hiding several beings there, and they're attempting to make their own version of Descendants called Oblivions. Glay wishes to join the hunt to see if one of those is her daughter, Dia. While on the mission, Glay's daughter, Dia, was still discovered to be alive and is one of Corel's top Oblivions. Descendants also discovered Serena Antonietta, a member of the Generation of Despair who went missing in the area almost a century ago. They band together and they come up with a plan to save Dia, which comes to a head with a battle against her, and after defeating her, the two inject her with a serum, the two being Glay and Serena, which cures her but causes damage where she will have to spend a long period of time in stasis. This leads us to the most recent parts of the story. Season 3. Season 3 Part 2 actually released about halfway through the time I was writing and researching this, but I wanted to delay the script just a little longer to include that. So, I want to say from season 3 onwards, I plan on streaming all the story stuff on here, commentary free. For some certain updates, though, I would still recommend Whispering Hawk, as I had trouble with season 3, episode 2. The game crashed several times, and I had to do, 3 different streams in the middle of cutscenes, so I never really got the chance to see how they ended. I had to get that from a friend. So going forward, I will plan on streaming all of the update stories the day they come out. Anyway, for season 3, the Descendants discover significant dimensional breaches in the Axion planes due to the destruction of the Ironheart. The Descendants all immediately search the area, and eventually headquarters gets involved. However, the ship headquarters gets shot down, and the crew gets captured by the Vultures. Among those captured are Alpha, Nell, Harris, and a couple of foot soldiers. The guide realizes that the Descendants have a chance to uncover Corell's plans through Daya's memory, so the player enters her subconscious and learns about the Dominator back on Clipoff, and how their planet is being ravaged by Colossi. A meeting is arranged where Corell meets with humanity and agrees to release everyone if the Descendants agree to give up their Arche to act as the third Ironheart and let them go home. However, this deal is a trap. He also ends up killing 2 of the soldiers and severely injuring Harris before keeping Nell and Alpha. The Descendants also, after a while, realize this is a trap, and they choose not to partake. Nell, after being tortured for information, has an awakening of her powers and ends up breaking free from the facility. All the Descendants then gather together, led by Enzo, and they hatch a plan to get Alpha back. The second part of the update, which was released again in the middle of the script, picks right up where they left off. The guide reaches into the void before finding a connection with Alpha, who's being tortured for information. The Descendants then go to the Magisters for help, but the Magisters are displeased with humanity for destroying an Ironheart, informing them they will no longer be helping with any technology unless given Axiom ore, as the original plan for the Magisters was for full control of the Ironhearts, which is something no longer possible. The Descendants managed to get a shipment in, and technology helpers. They then strategically search all the supermassive labs before finding the correct one that has Alpha in it. However, this is a trap. Corell expected them to come, and a machine activates that could exterminate all of them. However, Alpha, whose Arche has now returned just enough to make connections with the guide, has already made a plan, and he sacrifices himself with the Arche that had freshly returned, saving all of the Descendants and giving humanity more of a chance. A final message from Alpha is played, and the Descendant goes around the territories helping clean up Vulgus forces. Bunny accidentally reveals she once stalked Alpha into a secret room underneath Albion, which housed several colossi, a scene that I believe was teased at the very beginning of the game from this image right here. A few more things happen that are of minuscule importance, but the story of this update ends with Freyna, Inez, and Keelan discussing a Magister facility in Axiom, and they learn that Albion was never about defending humans, but it was about mining Axiom, a material lethal to those without Arche. With this in mind, and the Magisters now no longer seeming like the ally that we thought they were, this is where the story leaves off for now. And that about covers it. To me, this was quite the script to write. It came out at about 2,400 words. I really didn't expect the game to have such deep lore because it's not something I really paid attention to up until just recently. But honestly, it went a lot deeper than I thought. I know I left off Descendant specific stories, but if you guys want me to cover that, I'd be more than happy to cover those. There's a lot of lore for each specific Descendant in the game. There's many things I've still yet to uncover, especially the records that have come out in the new update, Season 3 Part 2, the November update. If I find anything new and exciting, I'll cover it in a video like this one. Uh, I'd like to cover each of the characters and regions in detail. Maybe I'll get around to doing that in the future. Maybe I won't, but I'd like to. And in the meantime, hopefully you guys found this video worthwhile and interesting. Hearing me ramble about lore and Jeremy's death. Jeremy's death was the best scene in the game, by the way. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys have, lore characters that you'd like to see me talk about in the future, just leave a comment and I'll do the ones that are most popular.
Viscous.